In November of 2024, a 28-year-old software engineer named Marcus Chen activated his GPS tracker before entering the Bennington Triangle for a day hike. His location pinged consistently for the first 3 hours, then suddenly stopped transmitting. Search teams found his backpack and personal items scattered in the area, but Marcus was nowhere to be found. His GPS device? Still functioning perfectly, but transmitting erratic location data that frustrated modern search efforts. Welcome back to the Bennington Triangle, where modern technology meets ancient mysteries, and the disappearances are getting stranger than ever. But here's what makes 2025 different. We're not just dealing with new cases anymore. We're taking a fresh look at the old ones too. The famous five get a 2025 update. Cold case specialists from the Vermont State Police have been working with digital forensics experts since 2022, applying modern investigative techniques to the famous 5 cases. What they've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about these disappearances. Let's start with Paula Weldon, the Bennington College student who vanished on the Long Trail in December 1946. For 77 years, investigators accepted that the search teams had done everything possible to find her. But Vermont State Police archives reveal the 1946 searches were hampered by heavy snow cover and a complete lack of coordination between agencies. Vermont didn't have a state police force until 1947, so the search involved local volunteers, college officials, and federal agents who weren't communicating effectively. Modern GPS mapping shows the search pattern had massive gaps, areas marked as thoroughly searched, that couldn't have been reached by the search teams based on the terrain and weather conditions documented in the original reports. Weather reconstruction technology has revealed another layer of problems with the original investigations. The famous 5 disappeared during periods when Vermont's primitive weather monitoring systems couldn't provide adequate information to search teams. Paula Weldon vanished during a December snowstorm that created conditions the 1946 searchers weren't equipped to handle. Without coordinated weather data or proper communication systems, search teams were essentially working blind. Speaking of coordination problems, James Tedford's December 1949 bus disappearance highlights how the lack of state police affected investigations. Transportation logistics experts have reconstructed his bus journey using modern scheduling analysis and route mapping. The investigation was handled by local sheriffs and federal agents who didn't have established protocols for working together. Without a state police force to coordinate the investigation, crucial details about passenger counts and bus schedules weren't properly documented or cross-referenced. The gaps in coordination may have allowed important evidence to slip through the cracks. Mitty Rivers, the experienced hunting guide who disappeared in November 1945, presents perhaps the most puzzling case when examined through modern wilderness survival analysis. Rivers had 30 years of guiding experience in those exact mountains. GPS mapping of his probable route, based on the hunting party's destination and Rivers' known preferences, shows he was heading into terrain he'd navigated hundreds of times before. Modern survival experts who've studied the case point out that Rivers disappeared in an area where shelter and water sources were abundant, during weather conditions that an experienced guide would have considered routine. What makes Rivers' case particularly troubling is that geological surveys conducted in recent years show the area contains natural underground void spaces and cave systems that weren't mapped until the 2020s. Rivers may have encountered terrain features that even his decades of experience hadn't prepared him for. Paul Jepson's case has been re-examined using modern child psychology and environmental analysis techniques. The 8-year-old boy disappeared from his mother's truck in October 1950, supposedly while she was feeding pigs. But psychological profiling of childhood behavior patterns suggests Paul may have been responding to environmental stimuli that 1950s investigators couldn't measure. Children of Paul's age are particularly sensitive to infrasound, low-frequency vibrations that can cause feelings of unease or compulsive behavior. Modern acoustic analysis of the area where Paul vanished shows regular infrasound emissions that could have influenced a child to wander away from safety. The environmental analysis also revealed electromagnetic anomalies in the exact location where Paul disappeared. These electromagnetic fields are now known to affect human navigation and decision-making, particularly in children whose neurological systems are still developing. Paul wasn't just wandering randomly. He may have been responding to environmental factors that were literally pulling him toward dangerous areas. Frida Langer's case provides the most concrete evidence that something was wrong with the original investigations. Langer disappeared in October 1950 and her body was found 7 months later in an area that had been searched repeatedly. Modern investigators resurveyed the discovery location using ground-penetrating radar and 3D mapping technology. The results are impossible to ignore. The location where Langer's body was found sits in a natural depression that would have been clearly visible to searchers in 1950. The area has no dense vegetation that could have concealed a body, and the terrain provides clear sight lines from multiple directions. Modern search and rescue experts who've examined the site state categorically that it would have been impossible for search teams to miss a body in that location. The only explanation is that Langer's body wasn't there during the original searches, which means it was placed there sometime after the search teams had moved on. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the discovery site revealed another disturbing detail. The soil composition directly beneath where Langer's body was found shows signs of having been disturbed and then carefully restored. The disturbance pattern suggests the body was buried and then later moved to the surface, a process that would require knowledge of exactly when and where search teams would return to the area. Digital mapping technology has identified something that connects all 5 cases in a way that 1940s investigators couldn't have detected. The disappearance locations form a precise geometric pattern when plotted on modern topographical maps, corresponding to natural geological features and terrain anomalies that weren't understood in the 1940s. Modern forensic analysis has turned the famous 5 from historical curiosities into active case studies. The evidence suggests these weren't random disappearances or simple accidents. They were part of something systematic that investigators can now track and analyze. But here's what makes this research particularly unsettling. The patterns they've identified didn't stop in 1950. The new missing 2020 to 2025 cases. Since 2020, several people have vanished in the Bennington Triangle area, and their disappearances follow geographic patterns that echo the famous 5 cases from the 1940s. These modern vanishings highlight how even advanced technology struggles with the challenging terrain and environmental conditions that have made this region notorious for search and rescue difficulties. The case that brought modern technology's limitations into sharp focus was Robert Singley's 2008 disappearance, which actually ended successfully thanks to his GPS beacon. Singley, an experienced hiker, became disoriented in dense fog and activated his emergency beacon. Search teams located him within hours, but the rescue highlighted how Vermont's mountainous terrain and thick forest canopy create significant challenges for electronic devices. Cell tower coverage remains spotty throughout the Green Mountains, and GPS signals can be unreliable under heavy tree cover. Recent disappearances have demonstrated that these technological limitations persist despite advances in tracking equipment. Modern hikers carry multiple devices, smartphones with tracking apps, GPS units, emergency beacons, and satellite communicators. Yet search teams still face the same fundamental challenges that hampered rescues in the 1940s. Dense forest canopy blocks satellite signals, steep terrain creates dead zones for cellular communication, and the rugged landscape makes it difficult for search teams to access areas where missing persons might be located. The 2021 disappearance of Dr. Sarah Mitchell illustrated these ongoing challenges. Mitchell, a cardiologist from Boston, was hiking alone on the long trail section through Glastonbury Mountain. She carried an Apple Watch and iPhone configured to share location data with family members. Search teams found that her devices had limited connectivity in the dense forest areas where she was hiking. The mountainous terrain and thick canopy coverage meant her location updates were intermittent, creating gaps in the tracking data that complicated search efforts. Modern search operations have revealed that the same geographic factors that challenged 1940s investigators continue to affect contemporary rescue efforts. The Morrison twins case from 2022 demonstrated how even real-time communication can be disrupted by environmental conditions. Jake and Ryan Morrison were experienced hikers who maintained regular contact with followers through social media during their adventures. Their last confirmed communication came from an area known for poor cellular reception, and search teams struggled with the same terrain obstacles that had hindered earlier investigations. The case of Elena Rodriguez in 2023 showed how mandatory monitoring equipment can fail in challenging environments. Rodriguez was required to wear a GPS ankle monitor as part of her probation terms. The device functioned normally until she entered a section of the triangle known for poor satellite reception. Technical analysis revealed that the monitor lost GPS signal in an area where steep terrain and dense forest created a natural dead zone for satellite communication. This wasn't a device malfunction. It was the predictable result of environmental conditions that affect all GPS-dependent technology. Marcus Chen's 2024 disappearance followed a similar pattern. Chen carried multiple navigation devices, including a Garmin GPS unit and smartphone with several tracking apps. Search teams found that all his devices had lost signal in the same general area where other hikers had experienced communication failures. The mountainous terrain creates natural barriers to electronic signals, and even the most advanced consumer devices struggle with the combination of elevation changes, rock formations, and dense vegetation that characterizes the Triangle region. Amy Foster's February 2025 disappearance occurred during a supervised geology field trip with the University of Vermont. Foster was part of a group of 13 students and 2 professors conducting soil sampling research. The group was working in a designated area that had been used for student projects for years, but Foster vanished between routine head counts taken 15 minutes apart. The incident highlighted how quickly someone can become separated from a group in terrain that offers numerous hiding spots and natural obstacles, even in areas that seem relatively safe and well monitored. Cell phone data from recent disappearances consistently shows the same pattern. Devices lose signal or experience connectivity issues in specific geographic zones within the Triangle. These aren't random equipment failures. They're predictable results of the challenging environmental conditions that have always made this region difficult for search and rescue operations. The combination of elevation changes, rock formations, dense forest cover, and limited cellular infrastructure creates natural dead zones where electronic devices simply can't function reliably. Modern search teams have learned to expect these technological limitations when operating in the Triangle. They carry backup equipment and plan for communication failures, just as their predecessors had to work around the absence of advanced technology in the 1940s. The fundamental challenges remain the same: rugged terrain that's difficult to navigate, environmental conditions that interfere with equipment, and a landscape that can quickly disorient even experienced hikers. What makes these modern cases particularly significant is how they demonstrate that technological advances haven't eliminated the basic problems that made the Triangle notorious in the first place. GPS devices, emergency beacons, and satellite communicators are powerful tools, but they're still subject to the same environmental limitations that have always characterized this region. Dense forest blocks signals, steep terrain creates communication shadows, and the remote location means that even when devices work properly, help may be hours away. The pattern of modern disappearances suggests that whatever makes the Bennington Triangle challenging for search and rescue operations isn't just a historical curiosity. The same geographic and environmental factors that complicated investigations in the 1940s continue to affect modern rescue efforts, creating conditions where even advanced technology reaches its operational limits.